Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Brian. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of music inspired by art, a rather self-describing theme. Today, we're going to check out a track from the Velvet Underground. This track is called Venus and Furs and is inspired by a novel of the same name. The novel tells the story of a man who wishes to be dominated and treated as a slave by the woman he loves. So let's dive into this. See what the Velvet Underground is bringing to the table today.
Shiny, shiny, shiny boots of leather. Whiplash, girl child in the dark.
Kind of medieval folk
Comes in
with the
bells,
tambourine-esque
the servants
sounds
don't forsake him.
and the very large
Strike
drum
their
head.
mistress and cure his heart.
Of course, they changed the pattern up. Trying to figure this instrument out too. It sounds like a violin or some sort of bowed instrument, but there's a lot of slippage to the sounds.
Ermine furs adorn imperious. Severin awaits you there. Sleep for 1,000 years, 1,000 dreams that would awake me. Different colors made of tears.
This guitar in the center channel gives us two chords to work with, but the violin is kind of static in its tone.
Of shiny, shiny leather.
The song almost feels like it's at odds with itself, wanting to move and progress through a cycle, and the other wanting to be stagnant.
Tongue the thongs, the belt that does await you. Strike, dear mistress, and cure his heart.
The vocal delivery is interesting too, sometimes being sing-songy and sometimes adding vibrato as if traditional vocal delivery.
Severin, speak so slightly. Severin, down on your bended knee. Taste the whip, in love not given lightly. Taste the whip, now bleed for me.
There's the chorus again.
I am weary. I could sleep for 1,000 years, 1,000 dreams that would awake me. Different colors made of tears. Shiny, shiny, shiny boots of leather. whiplash girl child in the dark. Severin, your servant, comes in bells, please don't forsake him. Strike, dear mistress, and cure his heart.
All right. I want to preface this with a little bit of some context because I feel it's really important. This track is over a century old at this point. I think the album on Deezer said 67. Yeah, so like 59 years old right there. I've mentioned this in some other reactions where we look at stuff that's from decades prior. And I've brought up the concept that sounds evolve over time with cultures. That what's, the type of music and harmonic devices that portrayed X emotion in a certain time period might portray Y emotion in a present time period. And I often point towards Baroque music as an extreme example of this, a lot of which was written for the church, but now is often found on Halloween discs for spooky sounds. That's a little bit of a change in how the culture and the people related to those specific sounds. And I want to extend that here as well because I don't believe that the way I'm about to talk about this is how it was received. Although I would love to hear some people who were around in 67 when this came out. It doesn't have to be the exact year, but from the 70s too, I'd wager that the culture probably hadn't changed too much, and the relationship to these sounds probably wasn't that different. But how was this song understood back then? I put that down because the way I hear this is, well, it's kind of destructive. Part of this is the fact that the production on this is not great. I have no idea if this is the way it was heard on record at the time, but the way that I'm being presented with this, wherever this media came from, it sounds like there's a lot of destruction that's already gone on in the media itself. That is to say, I don't think this is a pristine recording of it, but simply that this might just be the only lasting recording they had to upload to streaming services. Because when I listen to the guitar, the center guitar, it's generally fine most of the time, but there are areas where it dips in tone. It becomes flat. And that creates a lot of dissonance that I'm not sure was intended. It could also be that for whatever reason, they purposefully performed that note or those series of notes flatter. Maybe that string itself wasn't tuned precisely when they recorded this, and it adds that dissonance to it. I don't know, but given the tonal elements that pop up and the waviness of the sound in general, this is simply just not a pristine recording, and I have to entertain the idea that some of my issues with it are degradation elements more so than intentional composition and performance components. But when I listen to the guitar, it is mostly in tune, but sometimes out of tune. It creates a clashing sound, particularly with the violin over here, which is EQ'd incredibly gnarly. I do think that there are some, what would today at least be frequencies of pitch that are de-emphasized in the mix because they are fatiguing to listen to. I think there's a way to make this violin part sound more natural, easier to listen to for longer times, less shrill in ways without changing the composition of it. I don't think it's the note itself. I think it's the frequencies of these tones. There's also the bass guitar in here, which I feel is just a little bit too low. I didn't even realize it was there until, I mean, we were a good way into the track. Maybe 2 minutes in when I realized there was actually a bass guitar in here. And then the drums, the drum and the tambourine, I think they're mixed well. They sound fine. I don't really have any beef with that. But harmonically and sonically, the way all of this comes together is that there's a general destruction of harmony in this track, which a song about someone who consents to being treated a specific way by someone he loves, that's all positive notions within the framing of this. We'll touch on the lyrics later. Maybe there's some stuff in there that matches this, but I think the intention of this track is mostly supposed to be positive musical ideas, and that the negative elements, the dissonance that shows up from time to time, and the abrasive sonic production of some of these instruments, it really is something that I think was unintentional. But I can't help but feel this song within that framework, because especially during the chorus, there is this really tense second chord, particularly from the guitar, and it adds a feeling of, well, it's not danger, but it's vile. It's ill intent, it's evil. It's a very strange vibe for the description I've been given, even as I'm going to wager 67, what is this, domination, if nothing else. I mean, it's even in the word of the description, a man who wishes to be dominated. I don't know how popular of an idea that was. It's certainly a couple decades before, 50 Shades of Grey broke into the popular consciousness. I'm going to wager that this topic probably was a bit rare, maybe even obscene for the time. I may do a little digging when I head into the lyrics and kind of check some of this stuff out, kind of get a feel for what the culture was like at the time. But even within that framework, I don't know that evil is a phrase I would want to use when describing this, but it's what I get in the music. And when I pair that with the singularity of focus, the guitar tries its best. It has 2 chords it bounces between. We get a 3rd chord at the end of the 8-bar phrase, so there's a little bit of a push towards more, but it gets reined back in. All of this with the violin over here stuck in 1 chord. We have 2 notes, and that is it. And one of the notes is, well, I described it as, I don't remember how I described it actually, but slippery was the word I used. It's a very smooth slide downward. It also feels, there's danger to it, and I think general BDSM danger is a part of that, but again, I feel it's more to danger through malevolence rather than danger through love and expression. Now again, 67, maybe some of these ideas weren't as fleshed out and talked about as they are today. I feel like the topic of BDSM is a bit more open, and is more psychological discussion around it, more being within that culture discussion around it. And while there's still pearl clutchers out there, it is a topic that I think has more seriousness to it and is accepted more even by people outside of that culture than probably were in 67. So I'm trying to like contextualize all this within its time frame. But I'm still not sure if evil, malevolent, malicious are the sounds, or the words the words I should be using to describe this, because I don't think that's how it was felt then. But it is how I interpret it today. And a lot of it comes down to the guitar and the violin and also the vocalist, because they're not too keen on pitch either. This is something I brought up a little bit in the reaction itself, is that the vocalist, they're kind of sing-songy. If you listen to the end of a line, often they'll hit the final note and then just kind of drag down a little bit. And it feels more like spoken word. Because in music, you hit your pitch and that's it. Maybe you'll have a little bit of a bend, but you don't really like just allow it to fade out a little bit and then just that kind of vibe is at the end of a lot of these sentences. And I find it interesting when it's juxtaposed with really strong elements of hitting a note and holding a vibrato on it, of having that more traditional vocal delivery. It's an interesting juxtaposition between the looseness of speech and the rigidity of singing. And it never really, it never locks into either one. It continues to walk this line down the middle of both sides, not really being sung throughout, but not being spoken either. This is not poetry. This is not spoken word, but it's not really sung either. And it's this interesting middle of the road approach that, I mean, when we speak, we don't really aim for specific pitches. We're not singing in, or we don't speak in a key or anything like that. There's all sorts of variety of microtonal pitches in our speech. Here, a lot of that microtonality bleeds through. I mentioned at the end, we just kind of allows the pitch to drop down into like a fry crackle, just that popcorn crackling sound sometimes. But even during the song itself, it never really aims for specific pitches. And this only creates more harmonic friction or dissonance with the other two melodic instruments here. I feel like the bass is the only thing that is consistently solid throughout. It does a lot of pedal tone stuff, but you'll get 4 pedal tones and a little bit of movement, and then 4 pedal tones and a little bit of movement. It tries its best, more so than the guitar, I think, to create a chordal movement, a chord progression through this song, rather than just being locked into a space. But it too ends up being restrained by, again, I really think the violin over here. It's unwavering. It has its one note and it's happy with that. But the bass never seems to play around with this dissonance or this lack of tonal accuracy that the guitarist and the vocal likes to play around with. And even the violin, because of that slide down, is microtonal. And so the song has a harmonic identity to it. It is in a key, but really none of the instruments care too much about being precisely within that key. Really only the bass does. Everyone else is fine coloring outside the lines, pretty aggressively at times. I think all of this is what creates this feeling of looseness, which is kind of an interesting term to use when we're talking about BDSM, which is about strict rules of domination. You follow them, and that's how you can get off. A looseness of sounds, that's not following the rules. So I find that interesting. We'll hit the lyrics later, and we'll see what we can find out of this. But I do find this track to be generally dark and ominous in a way that I don't think it necessarily wanted to be, or might not have been interpreted at the time. But I do think that the danger of it that is hinted at in times might have been felt stronger and is a core element of the intentions of this track. The last thing I'm going to bring up, not really for any reason other than to bring it up, is the highly unique and unorthodox percussion on this. It's what gives it, originally I had mentioned, some sort of a medieval folk sound to it. It sounds like a rather large drum with I don't know what kind of drum head is on it, but it has a bounciness to it that I tend to associate with more traditional drum heads rather than more modern drum heads. Something that might have been made out of animal skin, possibly. I'm not saying they went and made an animal skin drum, but the sound of it certainly mimics that of older drum sounds. Um, I find that to be interesting, but it is also just the one sound, something maybe akin to a bass kick as far as the role of it within this rhythmic device, but could also be a tom possibly. It is very locked in to just being these two hits that follow into the tambourine shake. And that's it. That's the entirety of it. It is supremely stripped down. And I find it to be very interesting because it is simple. I'm not sure if this is what Velvet Underground typically works with. I'm not sure if this was outside of their norm. Honestly, I don't think I know any tracks from the Velvet Underground. It's quite possible I've heard a song and didn't know it was them. But when I think of the band, I don't have any song title or even a sonic property that jumps to mind. Honestly, I thought they were more rock. This ended up being artsy in a way I wasn't expecting. So I have nothing to sort of base this off of because I don't know that I've heard anything from them. But I still find the drums to be an interesting choice within this. However, the idea of being stripped back, when we look at that from a human perspective, might be a feeling of vulnerability, which is absolutely something that BDSM plays with. It's a release of control and authority over oneself and giving that up to someone else, which requires a ton of trust and is a huge element of that culture. I don't know if that's why they went for the drum direction they did, or I should say the percussion direction they did, but I do think it is an interesting parallel nonetheless. Let's hit some lyrics on this, see what's going on there. The first thing that stands out to me as I read these lyrics is how tame they are compared to some modern music. And I'm not even talking about underground, but even some popular music from popular artists. This is a fairly reserved description of BDSM. But on the other hand, it's also incredibly, I don't want to say empty, but it is very surface level. On the one hand, we have verses that describe the mistress, someone who is adorned with furs, with shiny boots of leather, carrying a tongue of thongs, which is an old school way of saying a multi-headed whip. And then we also have a description of Severin, the main character of the novel. It says that Severin awaits you there, speaking to the mistress in a way. It also says that he is down on one knee, speaking so slightly. There's a recurring phrase here that says, "Strike, dear mistress, and cure his heart." I think it's a very interesting description. Makes me want to read the novel a little bit to see what's going on here. I'm not From a modern perspective, I will say this is probably not healthy. Um, uh, BDSM is about expression, not about fixing someone. So I'm going to chalk this up to it being of its time, but also I'm not going to put that in Velvet Underground's perspective because it's probably inspired from the book in some way, shape, or form, maybe an implied concept, or maybe even intentionally and deliberately stated within the novel itself. But the general idea is that this Severin character is in the presence of this mistress and is ready for his punishment. There is the other side of this, though. It's the chorus. It says, "I'm tired. I'm weary. I could sleep for 1,000 years, 1,000 dreams that would wake me, different colors made of tears." I can't, for the life of me, figure out what this means within the context of this. unless he thinks that this experience will be something that is different from others. To be so tired of what the world has to offer, to dream 1,000 dreams and never be satisfied. He calls all of these dreams different colors made of tears. I was trying to figure out what this is, and just in a flash right now, I wonder if those are tears of sadness, of discontent, maybe. Regardless, it is a very stark change in language, vocabulary, but also music. This is the tensest part of the track and the one that introduces the most disharmony or why am I blanking? A dissonance into the song. It's on that second line. I could sleep for 1,000 years. I'm curious why this is supposed to be the most antagonistic part of the track. I'm not 100% sure. But reading this all as a poem, music aside, I do think that its correlation is about trying to find a release, yourself, something new in a world that has begun to bore our narrator. That's my best read on it. It's an interesting track. Definitely one that feels dated. Maybe not, well, definitely sonically, sure, the production on this feels older, but I also find the lyrics to date the track as well. But these are just my thoughts. On the Velvet Underground's, what is this track called? Venus in Furs. Oh, is that a reference to like, what's that painting? Venus de Milo? Is that what it is? Let me look this up real quick. Oh, I need to look up something else about Velvet Underground too. All right, not Venus de Milo, as that's a specific sculpture, but Venus, the goddess of sex and fertility, in furs, fur and leather, which goes along with this imagery. So yeah, that's probably quite intentional, the use of Venus there. Um, but I couldn't remember what else I wanted to look up previously. So if you have any answers to questions I posed earlier, please put them down into the description box, no, into the comment section, along with any thoughts that you have about this, your perspectives, opinions, anything you'd like to add to the conversation. Throw all that down below. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.